Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the third YALI Rise Malawi webinar session. Today, we are going to talk about our cross-cutting sections issue. And today is more focused on marketing yourself as a person, branding yourself, and public speaking. We've got a lineup again today. I'm sure most of you saw already the communication on the poster. Today, your first presenter will be myself. My name is Khadija Sungeni Musa. I am the Vice President of the YALI Association in Malawi, and I will be presenting on personal marketing, like how you can market yourself as an individual using your CVs and your application letters, as well as touching a bit on your social media management. And then next up, we're going to have an external speaker known as Kumbulani Javula. He's going to be talking to us about public speaking with a bit of a twist. He's going to incorporate the art of spoken word and a bit of theater and show us how you can use those forms of public speaking to reach an audience. And lastly, but not least, we are going to have Frank Mulwa. Now, Frank is, I'll call him a bit of both because he's part of the YALI network. He has taken some courses in the YALI network. He has organized some YALI Learns events in Karonga up north where he is, but he is not yet a YALI fellow, a graduate fellow, or a Mandela Washington graduate fellow. So hopefully Frank will be joining those cohorts soon and becomes an alumni of the programs. But Frank is going to be talking to us in depth about personal branding. So I'm going to touch a bit on it, but Frank is going to expand a bit more. So without further ado, I think I will start our first session. Okay, so like I said, my name is Khadija Sungeni Musa. I am talking today to you about professional self-marketing rather. And like I said, I'm a representative of the YALI Association in Malawi. So, are you back on? Okay, great. I decided to start with a bit of a quote because what I'm talking about today, I've often had people come to me and say, "Oh no, I'm job hunting, but at this point I'm tired. You know, I'm doing a lot, but nothing seems to be working. I'm on the verge of giving up. Maybe I should try and run a business, but not everybody's oriented for entrepreneurship. Maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do that. What is it exactly that I'm doing right and what am I doing wrong?" So this is just a motivational quote that I like from Dr. Martin Luther King, who was a civil rights activist and a pastor. And basically he said, if you can't fly, then run. But if you can't run, then walk. If you cannot walk, then you should crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep on moving, you know, so you cannot give up. There are ways that you can improve. There are ways that you can better yourself, and there are resources. And that's why, especially for us during this COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen that this is a perfect opportunity because there's a bit of downtime for quite a few people. So there's a bit of opportunity for people to improve their skill set. There's a bit of opportunity for everybody to revamp the way they do things and come back bigger and better. So this is just a quote to just help you guys to keep on moving. Those of you who are on the job hunt, those of you who just want to, you know, be prepared. Maybe you're in a secure job or you're in a secure project or you're volunteering somewhere, but you just want to stay prepared or you want to know better how you can maneuver certain spaces, especially online spaces. This is where I'm going to just talk a bit about how to help you with doing that. So the outline for today's presentation is we're going to look at CVs and resumes, so a bit of do's and don'ts. B, we're going to look at application letters, or some of you know them as cover letters, and just how to effectively structure it. And lastly, we're going to talk a bit about social media platforms. So how it is that you manage your brand. How do you present yourself on the platforms that you're present on? And then after that, there's going to be a bit of a spot quiz, as we normally do, where you can stand a chance to win one of the prizes. It could be a bottle. Got a bottle here, my YALI bottle. It could be one of these, a t-shirt. And it could also be a cap. I don't have a cap, unfortunately. My head is not shaped for that. But yeah, so let's see how we're going to go through it. And hopefully you guys can catch on to the things that we point out and the things that we say, and we can get some takeaways. So feel free to let me know if you have any questions towards the end. Feel free to also just tell us where it is that you're joining from so that we can keep that on record. Okay, so curriculum vitae, also known as CVs. A CV and a resume, you'd be surprised to know that there is actually a difference between the two. So we're just going to tackle a bit about what is the difference between a curriculum vitae and a resume, and which one do you use when. So CV, aka curriculum vitae, is Latin for the words course of life. So basically, the main purpose of a CV is to showcase your entire career path, the whole of it. You can showcase anything and everything that you've done. You can display everything in detail, make it comprehensive. That just shows your life's work, basically. It doesn't have a length. It doesn't have a length limit, rather, and it can be any information you can put on there. You can put it in the form of paragraphs, you don't have to make it concise. It can have sections where you explain things in detail. So you can talk about professional appointments that you've had. Maybe you're a board member somewhere. Talk a bit about that organization. I'm a board member of this. This is what they do. Or you're a member of a certain association or a board. This is what that place does. Maybe you've written some papers, maybe you've published some things, maybe you've gotten scholarships. You can, give a brief outline. This scholarship is about this and that. Maybe you've gotten fellowships, you've received grants, you've applied for those. You've maybe had a research or teaching experience somewhere. You can detail all of that. You've attended a certain conference as whatever it is, in whatever capacity it is that you are attending in. You can highlight those in detail so that the reader knows exactly what it is that you're talking about. And then you can also include, some people like to include things like their interests, their hobbies. Maybe you took a gap year sometime just to take a break. What did you do then? And anything else that you deem might be useful for a CV. A resume, on the other hand, is French for summary, to sum it up. So this is where you want that concise content. So that's perfect for when you need to give a brief overview of your career path as well as the skills that you have. So that's the main purpose of a resume. In a resume, you ideally should showcase just your work and history, experience, and your relevant skills, and a bit of education in there as well. So a resume should be 1 to 2 pages long, maybe 3 at the most, if we're gonna push it, because sometimes you want to put everything in the 1 and 2 pages, and maybe your third page could be half some information and the other part maybe some references. So you want it concise. You want to put short sentences there. You want to put bullet points. So anybody who's going through it should be able to just, 1, 2, 3 things should just call out to them and show that way, not a lot of condensed information that they have to try and read. Remember, people are scanning these things. You can have sections there for your work experience. You can have a small section for your education, your skill set. Maybe you want to put, for example, certain achievements that are really important that you've done, instead of detailing them. Remember how in the CV you could detail and say, oh no, this is this award that I got. This is what it was about. This is how long I was there for. In your resume, you would just say award recipient of this award, and you leave it at that. So yeah, you can, whether you have a certification of some sort, maybe you're licensed to do something, maybe a chartered accountant, and you're in, I don't know what, I don't know the membership status of accountants in Malawi. That's not my field. But for example, if you belong to an institution like that, you're registered with, let's say there's a Malawi chartered accountants institution or something, and you're registered, you would just put that you're a member of this place, but you don't detail what's in there. So looking at the do's and don'ts in what both your CV and your resume should have and should not have. So for do's, these are pretty straightforward. It should have your full name, so first name, middle name, or names if you have, and your surname, and maybe a short profile, like what you're about. When I say profile, I mean a couple of sentences, 4 lines at the most, that just says, oh, my name is so-and-so, I am a marketer by profession. I'm very passionate about A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and just a quick that just sums up who you are. After that, you can have your personal information. This is where you put your phone number or phone numbers, your email address, your instant messaging platforms like Skype, for example. You can put a general geographic location. I put an example there, like Area 18 Lilongwe. You don't need to put your exact residential address. If you have a PO box, for example, you can put that there. But there's no need to specifically say this is the street house number where I live and so on. That's not information that's relevant or important. If you have professional social media places that you are on, such as LinkedIn, you can have your LinkedIn link on your CV as well, or your resume. And then for the order of how you put your information in. So soon after, these personal details and these contact details, put everything in reverse chronological order. That's to say, whatever is the most recent thing that you've done. So you're starting with your work experience, for example, your most recent job or your most recent project or whatever it is that you do, the most recent one. And then you go in order of what's most relevant. Now, for a lot of people, you have some people who've done quite a bit. And there's a lot to detail. And remember, we're trying to keep this concise if it's a resume, for example. So for me, a general rule of thumb is I don't put anything that's older than 2 years. So I'll list all the jobs or projects or whatever it is that I've had in the past 2 years. Anything I've done before that, it's not that it's obsolete, it's irrelevant. That's why I have my LinkedIn link there in my CV. In case somebody wants to check out anything that I've done in the past, you can easily find it on my LinkedIn. I didn't have to add it to my condensed resume. Another thing is that you need to include keywords. So keywords are like, your buzzwords, whatever it is that's in the job description where it like screams to say, we want I'm going to keep using marketer. I don't know why. But let's say, for example, they want a salesperson. One of the key elements for a salesperson is to market things, right? So you want to put, the fact that you can market, you can conduct sales, you can advertise, those type of keywords. The type of keywords that you need to put, you can easily take from the job description in the vacancy announcement. There's certain things that they put in there and you can just pull those out and make sure that you insert them. This is what we call tailoring your CV. You tailor it to what the job description says, because when somebody is now looking through your CV, they're also going to be looking for those exact keywords. We are looking for somebody who has the ability to advertise, who has the ability to market, who's done billboards before. They're going to look for those exact keywords. So you make sure that those pop out so that you can stand out amongst the other CVs. Again, talking about standing out, this is where you need to highlight the things that make you stand out. For example, those who are applying for a job that's got something to do with project management, and you want to apply to be a project leader or a team leader of some sort, you would put a sentence there. Oh, I managed such and such a project. It had a budget of 25 million kwacha. And, these are the things that we achieved at the time. Those things. And for me, what I like to do is I like to just put them in bold. That way they stand out. They're more easily visible and they call attention to the reader of the CV. Use basic language, basic fonts, and basic color schemes. You don't want things that are loud, that are throwing up all over the place. It looks like a mess. We are not doing art. We are doing a CV or a resume. So you don't want fonts that are going to throw the person off. You don't want fonts that might not be able to be tracked in the applicant tracking system. For example, if some applications are going through, this is a robot. I don't know if some of you are aware of this, but sometimes some CVs are not even read by human beings. They go through a robot, and that robot is or program rather, and it's programmed to check for certain things. And there's certain fonts or certain formats that it can't be bothered to see. It just sees errors or it sees nothing. So you're going to lose out because your CV is all flamboyant and colorful and you're using all sorts of fancy fonts. You just need to stick to the basics, stick to basic languages. Sometimes don't, go for jargon or difficult words or terms, because this is where you now find yourself confusing and maybe possibly using the wrong word in the wrong context. And lastly, abbreviations, write them out. For example, up there where I said applicant tracking system, I put the abbreviation in brackets. Don't assume that people know what these abbreviations are in whatever field that you've been in. Write as though you're writing for somebody who's never been in that field before, who knows nothing about it, and follow instructions. If they say, for example, submit your application as a PDF, or they say submit it as a Word document only, and you go and you submit as a PDF. Generally, as a rule of thumb, I like to submit my things as PDFs, but I check to see what is it that they've said, because sometimes they're putting this through a system, like I said, and that might not accept certain formats. On the don'ts, one big thing that irks me is the first topic of the don'ts: adding irrelevant information to the job. This information is information that could automatically rule you out, like have you thrown out of the pile. This is not necessary for the job function. You've got to ask yourself, will this information get me the job? Is it relevant for this job application? So things like putting your nationality, your date of birth or your age, your sex. I'm male, I'm female, I'm married, I'm from this village, I'm from this ethnicity, this is my tribe. Is that relevant for the job? If it's not relevant, don't put it there. So for example, unless the vacancy announcement says open to Malawian candidates only, then you can put, oh, okay, my nationality is Malawian, just so they know. Sometimes you don't actually have to do that. Sometimes names tell a story. Sometimes your name automatically says whether you're a female or whether you're a male. It's not always. We do have unisex names, and we do have names that people don't know at all. But sometimes some of these things are quite obvious. So try to also minimize, because I've seen CVs where half the first page is taken up by these little details that are not entirely necessary. You're gonna have, sometimes there'll be bias against you. Sometimes, yes, I'm being notified about my time. Sometimes there'll be bias. Sometimes there'll be people who will be like, oh no, I don't like someone from such and such a place, so I'm not going to hire them. That's not relevant for you to put in the CV. Sell yourself in your CV, and that should be what gets you a seat at the table for the interview. And by then they found out who you are, but it's too late. You know, you're brilliant, you're the candidate, you get hired. Photos, selfies, you don't need to put a photograph of yourself unless the industry that you're applying to requires that. So if you're a model, for example, or an actress, your email address needs to be professional. None of this, you know, this is an example, hotstuff94@email.com. That's not necessary. Again, we already talked about fonts and color schemes. Quickly, I'll run through application process. So basically, this is the glue to your application. This is what sells yourself. You have to take note, especially for email applications. What did the instructions say? Did they say you should put your subject line as this? Did they say, you know, don't put anything in the subject line? What did they say? Have they given you a format? Stick to that format. Automatically, you get chucked out if your subject line is wrong. Address the person. It's very good if you even know their name. If you can go out of your way to find out their name, it shows that you did your research. If you know the name of the HR person who you're addressing this. In your email text, don't just say attached application and send it. You've got to put a bit of a body. I know you've written an application letter separately, but you've got to put a bit about what it is that you're doing. It just shows etiquette already there. This is like the first stage of the interview. And don't forget to put the attachments that you're supposed to put. So whether it's you're separating the documents or you've been told to put them all as one, you've got to do that. Online platforms, it's the same thing. Check what is there, what is needed. Can you enter this platform and apply and save and then go back and come back to it later? Or is it a once-off? Maybe you can already see what it is that they want in this application, and you can go and get yourself prepared. In your application letter, again, there's no right way or wrong way to do this. I've just put an example of the way I like to do it. My address up top at the right, and their address at the bottom. You've got to make sure at least both addresses are there. Again, you address the person, you've got your subject line there. In your introductory paragraph, you just say what it is that you're here for. Short, sweet, to the point. You know, I'm writing this to respond to your advert for this. Maybe you can put in where it was from. This is what I want to do. And a bit of a sentence about the place so that it shows that you've done your research about this company. I like what you do at Google because it resonates with my career and what I want. I really want to be a part of this team. In the body, that's where you now go and you sell yourself. No, as an experienced marketer, this is what I can bring to the table. I've held such and such a position at these other companies. This is what I managed. This was the budget of that project. And these were the results. You're selling it. Do not be shy to sell yourself. Say, I did this. Showcase yourself. You are selling yourself. This is your one chance to get a seat at that table for that interview. And you conclude by just showing additional skills that you have. Maybe you supervise teams. Maybe you design something, you created something. So you've got to just also say the fact that you can be reached also. And in case they have any further information, don't forget to sign off. Thank you. It's good to thank people. Whether you put yours sincerely, I'm a fan of thank you and best regards, and your name, obviously. Now, quickly going on to social media networking and management. Four main platforms that I deem really relevant for something like this. LinkedIn, for me personally, I spend about 45% of my time on my LinkedIn, just updating it, just posting what it is that I'm doing at any given time. This is very ideal for your professional networking, finding motivational posts that other people are doing, visibility, promoting yourself. So this place gives you sections to showcase yourself, show different talents, show different things that you're doing. And also it's just basically a hotspot for your personal development and finding linkages. Twitter is another good one. It's very easy to use and to navigate. It's very visible, and you can get things in real time. So that's another good thing about Twitter. You can curate it, or you can tailor it to suit the type of profile or the type of content rather that you want to use. But you have to be careful. Twitter can be a bit addictive, and it can be detrimental to, just you might tweet the wrong thing or say the wrong thing or get involved in the wrong thing. So you just have to be careful. Facebook, quite popular. I'm sure everybody knows about Facebook. And the different platforms and modalities that you can use on it. As a business, it's great. For individuals, it's more for social networking. And YouTube, for me, I found quite interesting because, that's where your visual content is. For example, if you have a company and you guys build, I don't know, houses, you can easily make, videos and post them on your YouTube channel for people to be able to see live what it is that you do. So professional use of social media, don't worry, I'm almost done. Professional use of social media. I've just posted a bunch of different, not entirely all social media, some of them are job vacancy sites, but basically professional use of social media, you need to join peer networks that interest you so that you follow the right content, you follow the right people, the right entities, in the fields that so if you have a company that you've always wanted to work for, follow them on LinkedIn, interact with what they're doing, make them notice you. You can use these platforms to search for your jobs, your applications, your scholarships, your fellowships, any type of opportunities, they're there. Competitions, they're all there. You can showcase, post a lot about your achievements, things that you do. Make sure you're visible. Remember, you're here to sell yourself. So whatever goals you've set, let's say at the beginning of the year, you say, oh, by the end of this year, I want to have done 10 trainings in social media management, whatever it is. And then you post your progress, for example, on your LinkedIn, so that people can see the journey that you're taking. Post things that others can benefit from as well. It shows that you're quite a useful person to be following. You monitor the trends, you make sure you stay up to date with the things that are happening. So you comment a lot, use hashtags a lot, engage in healthy debates. So it's great, especially if you use social media as a sounding board, whether you create polls or you partake in Twitter spaces, maybe you post your achievements on fleets or lives or blogs or whatever it is. But always remember, you've got to be respectful and polite and professional always, especially if you're operating in a professional capacity. Think of the fact that there are consequences to the things that you say and or do. There can be implications. So you try to stay away from things which are not productive, and read first also before you just share things. The moment somebody writes something, it doesn't make it true. So read and educate yourself and make that discernment to say, is this something that I can share? Is this something that makes sense? Could this possibly be true? You don't want to be part of the fake news spread. So yeah, I have come to the end of my presentation. I have some quiz questions, spot quiz questions. So my first question, and we're monitoring both on the Facebook and YouTube channels. My first question to you guys is, what is the main difference between a CV and a resume? The second question is, what is the name? Okay, let's do question one first. Can we see Review, let me know if we're getting answers to question 1 first, and then we can proceed if we find somebody who's answered correctly. Are we getting answers? Are any answers coming in? Type your answers in the comments section. What is the main difference between a CV and a resume? I know there will be several answers which will be correct, but I'm looking for the main one. Okay, question 2. What is the name of that robot that tracks your job applications? So the full name as well as the acronym. What is the name of the bot that tracks job applications? The one where if you use flamboyant fonts and funny formats, it's not going to pick up on your CV and you can potentially lose a chance at a job because you were not shortlisted by that software. And the last question is, name one do that can make you stand out in your application letter and one don't on your CV or resume unless you're asked for it. So one do and one don't. One do that makes you stand out in your application letter, not in your CV, in your application letter, and one don't that you can put on your CV, that you should not put on your CV or your resume unless it's necessary, whether it's unless they've asked for it or it's unless the field that you're applying for, this is what qualifies, this is what makes sense for you to put. Okay, because I'm currently on the live, I can't see what the answers are. If they come through the ribbon, let me know. Question 1, the CV is detailed. Resume is summarized pitch of achievements. That's from Alan. A CV is detailed while a resume is summarized. Okay. Applicant tracking system. That's one of the answers to question 2. A CV shows your detailed career path while your resume is written in short and concise, considering important information only. That's from Mishek. A CV can be too long, while a resume can be very brief and straight, giving a picture of what, who one is. That's from Jimmy. Okay. All right, we'll check in which order the answers came in, and I'll post in the comment section who's won for each question. I think we can move on to the next presentation now. So Rev, you can bring up, the next person after me is Kumbo, I think. Yes, Kumbolani.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, Kumbo. How are you today?
I'm all right. How are you?
Great stuff. Real quick, before we go, there's my contact information before we enter Kumbo's presentation. So yeah, my name again, like I said, is Khadija Sungeni Musa. That's my email address if anybody wants to take down. That's my Twitter account, professional Twitter account. And my LinkedIn is also my full name. So if anybody wants to check out how it is that I've been talking about, this is what you ought to do, this is how you got to do it. So that's where you can see how I personally do it. I'm not saying it's the right way, I'm not saying it's the wrong way, but for example, for me, that's how I manage my 2 main social media accounts. I have chosen LinkedIn and Twitter for social networking for professional purposes. Thank you. We can go to Kumbo now.
Well, thank you for your presentation, Khadija. Evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kumbolani George Chavula, and I am a spoken word poet and an actor. I release my spoken word poetry under the brand Millesimo Poetry. Well, tonight I will be presenting on the art of public speaking through the technique of spoken word poetry. Well, first of all, I'll start this presentation with one of my favorite quotes as well by the greatest artist to ever exist on our planet Earth, which says, one can have no smaller or greater mastery than mastery of oneself. But what is self? How do you define self? And why is it important that one has to master self? Well, I will be answering these questions indirectly by answering these questions that I set. What is an art? How is there a correlation between one form of art and another? Why should we take public speaking as an art? And I'll give out my recommendations on the role of innovation in arts during this COVID-19 pandemic, relating it to my spoken word poetry. Well, what is an art? According to Wikipedia, art is a very diverse range of human activities which involves creative imagination to express technical proficiency, beauty, emotional power, or conceptual ideas. However, since the word arts came about, there's never been a generally agreed definition of what constitutes an art because from time trickling down to now, art has changed meaning from painting, sculpturing, theater, dance, and other performance arts like music, literature, and film, which begs the question that art has so many functions, and uh, some of the functions of arts are to communicate, to entertain, to be a social cause, or maybe to drive a propaganda. We have seen people using music as a form of propaganda to influence popular concepts. And we have seen music being at the forefront of COVID 19 awareness. However, it is also important for us to note that arts functions are not mutually exclusive, which means art for entertainment could be an art for communication. Art for communication could be an art for social cause. An art for social cause could also mean an art for propaganda. Well, uh, what is spoken word poetry? I bet most of people ask themselves, how different is spoken word poetry from any other type of poetry? Well, Wikipedia says a spoken word poet, or rather spoken word poetry, is an oral poetic performance art that is based mainly on the poem, but also mainly on the performer's recitation and wordplay, the intonations, the rhythms, the rhymes, and everything. Uh, but I say, spoken word poetry is poetry with no rules, which means it could be any kind of poetry. It could be poetry readings, it could be poetry slam, it could be jazz poetry, it could be hip hop, it could be public speaking, it could be prose or monologues. But spoken word poetry has to drive a very controversial message to the society. It has to bring change to the society, or maybe it has to drive to a certain point which will change the way people perceive an art or perceive a certain concept in the society, which brings me to what is public speaking. Well, Wikipedia says public speaking is the art of speaking face to face to a live audience. And public speaking can be used to accomplish popular purposes like to inform, to persuade, to entertain, or maybe to drive a social cause. Which brings me to this relationship between spoken word poetry and public speaking. They are all driving the same thing, they are all speaking of the same thing, they all involve an audience to be present. It is also important for us to note that the relationship between arts, public speaking, and spoken word poetry is the essence of storytelling. It is the imagination, the creative process, the preparation of the art, the mastery of the art itself, and the presentation of the speech, or maybe the poem, or maybe the presentation of the when there's the presence of an audience. But right now we can see that there is no presence of an audience. There is a presence of a live audience because this session is being recorded lively. But the process of building an art is what matters for us to relate art, public speaking, and spoken word poetry. Well, in theater and drama, we say art has two stages. It has the backstage and the front stage. In the backstage is where the art is in the preparation stage. And I say the art is in self, where in self mode, the art could be could make mistakes, and at the same time you could be correcting the mistakes while you make them, because nobody is there to see you. There is no live audience. So this is where the idea development comes in, the scripting of the arts, the characterization of the arts. Who is who in the poem? Who is what in the speech? The imagination of the target audience. Well, you have to go through imagining a live audience for you to prepare yourself for the presentation. Well, this preparation stage, the backstage itself, could take days, it could be in hours, or maybe a year or months before the actual presentation day. But the most crucial stage in the backstage is a mastery stage. This is where now you, as a spoken word poet, you, as a public speaker, you, as any form of art, a painting, have to take in the emotional side of your art. You have to drive in the voice into the arts. You have to go through the editing of the art, the directing, the reciting of the arts, the memorizing of the arts, because it is very important for you to know the arts before you sell it. You do not sell a propaganda before you believe it in yourself. You have to believe that this is going to sell for it to sell. Another crucial stage is the front stage. Now, this is where the arts is being presented to the audience. Now we are bringing in the element of the audience, which is a similarity between public speaking and poetry. They all involve the audience. The artist, therefore, in the front stage has to follow the script. He has to follow all that he corrected in the backstage, because at this point in time, the art is almost perfect. Should a mistake arise during the process of the presentation, I believe no one would notice that this art has a flow. And that's what makes art to be beautiful. It has to have a flow, because people normally don't notice the flow when it is there. At this point, I say in the front stage, the artist or the spoken word poet or the presenter has mastered the art. He has mastered the self, being the poem, being the speech. But why should we consider public speaking as an art? Well, I say every great story begins with a great storyteller. Likewise, every great public speech should begin with a great presenter. And to be a great presenter implies that one has mastered the art of being in the backstage and being in the front stage of the arts. One has gone through the intonations, has gone through the rhythms, has gone through the rhymes, has gone through everything that needed to be gone through, because at this point in time, there is no going back. You cannot change something that has already been scheduled to be presented. I'll quote one of my favorite speakers, Dr. Kenneth McFarland, who wrote the book Eloquence in Public Speaking. And he says, The key to eloquence is the emotional component that the speaker brings to the subject. But how does the speaker bring an emotional component into the subject? The only way you can bring an emotion into a poem or an emotion into a speech is through the backstage, by writing something that's at heart, something you really love, something that's built in between you as the storyteller. Well, what is the role of innovation in arts, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic? I At this point in time, we both have to agree that there is an intrinsic value derived when you look at an art in person. For example, when you look at a picture, you're like, oh, wow, this picture is perfect. When you look at a spoken word poet reciting a poem, you're like, oh, wow, he's really good. He knows how to present his poem. But how do we bring in innovation so that people could be able to appreciate art online? Because we also have to take note that despite that we are going through a crucial stage, we're going through a pandemic, there is also room to create new ideas. We have seen art in Brussels Hong Kong Fair going online, launching an online viewing room, which now enables about 2,100 works of art to be viewed by the public. And the value of this art is 270 million US dollars. This is a huge sum of money. And it is very, very crucial at this point as an artist or an art to embrace technology during this pandemic and to take advantage of it. We have a theory as innovation plus marketing. Less costs has to lead to profits. What is innovation? Innovation is the technology that you're going to use to sell out your art. But how are you going to use that type of technology? You have to put in some money into the technology so that that money could bring other earnings, which is your profit at the end of the day. You have to be able to buy a huge bundle for you to sell your public speaking to an audience outside Malawi. You have these days applications would definitely tell you, do you want to advertise your material? Do you want to sponsor your material? Take advantage of those opportunities and put in some money and sell yourself to the public. You never really know who is going to view your marketed video. Because, in as much as this marketing is important, the branding of yourself as an art is the most important point to take note, because a brand creates loyalty and loyalty trickles down into your earnings. For example, today you look at Telecom Networks Malawi. You definitely know what Telecom Networks Malawi does. Telecom Networks Malawi provides us with the internet. And it's the internet that sells out the products. Today, you have to communicate to somebody on the other end to tell them about your products. Why don't you try to take advantage of such technology and sell your art of public speaking? A recent research done by the World Bank, which is titled the 13th edition of the Malawi Economic Monitor, explains that the foundation of Malawi digital platforms are relatively well developed. They have the potential to transform all aspects of the economy by lowering the economic costs and the social transactions between firms, individuals, and the public. Why don't you, as an artist, try to bring up a platform which tries to sell your art? Why don't you make a website for your art in order for you to sell yourself to the public? Well, that's a question for another day to be answered, because I believe there are people out there trying day and night, trying to figure out what are they going to do to bring out the best in arts. Which brings me to my quiz questions. What platforms the first question, sorry, I would have to take that again. What platforms should be used to capitalize on the art of public speaking? You can suggest any platforms. This is open to any suggestions. Uh, the second question is, why is it relevant for an art to be capitalized? Why should you put in money into your art? Why should you buy a bundle so that your art could be presented to people outside Malawi? Why is it relevant for you to do that? How would you capitalize your art on a platform like YouTube? How would you capitalize your art on a platform like YouTube? Well, the answers are all in the presentation. I believe I've given out a few hints on these quiz questions, and I'll be looking for the answers, I guess. Uh, well, like I said, my name is Kombolane George Javula. I am a spoken word poet. I'm an actor and an economist. These are my contact details. Feel free to follow me on any social media platforms. But most important thing, remember to check out my YouTube channel. It's called Millesimo Poetry. Millesimal Poetry. All right. I guess this marks the end of my presentation. You have been a wonderful audience. You can book me anytime should you need my live presentation or you need my poetry. Those are my contact details. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kumbo. I'm seeing that you've signed off before we've had answers to the questions, so I'll
I,
just keep you
I
on
would not.
while we wait to
I'm
start
sorry.
receiving answers to the.
I'm sorry. I should have waited. Well, I'm still here. Don't worry.
No worries, no worries. The good thing is you're still here. So I'll just repeat the questions again for those who may not have heard them. The first question was, what platforms should be used to capitalize on the art of public speaking? The second question was, why is it relevant for an art, for example, public speaking, to be capitalized? Why should you capitalize on an art such as public speaking? And the last question is, how would you capitalize on a platform such as YouTube? How would you do it? How would you capitalize
Yeah.
YouTube?
Well, on the first questions, I'm not just looking for one answer. I'm looking for at least a couple of platforms. At least mention two, three, four platforms which you can use to to capitalize your art.
Okay. Jimmy says YouTube can be one of them by uploading videos so that people get to know who you are and what you are capable of doing in the arts slash public speaking industry. That's an answer to question one. What platforms
But
can be used?
now that begs the question: how do you capitalize using YouTube? Because those questions are logically flowing together. How
Mhm,
would you use YouTube to market your public speaking? Because
mhm,
you can upload your video on YouTube today, but who's going to see it? Only the people that are in contact with you. But how
mhm,
will the people that are not in contact with you see your art? That's the most important question you have to ask yourself when you're presenting your art to the public.
mhm. Can we have other answers streamed, please, so that we can see them and let Kumbo know, rather. There's an answer here that says Facebook page and Instagram as well. I'm not sure which question that answer is for, but that's something from Jimmy. He's in Facebook page and Instagram as well.
Still answers the first question, but it doesn't answer the last question, because if you're going to give me the answers for the first questions, you have to at least go down to the last question, because these questions are correlated. You're not just getting
Mhm.
the prize for one question, you're getting the prize for the three questions. When you tell
Oh,
me how you're going to use those platforms to capitalize your art, then it means you've given the right answer to the question.
okay. So looks like Kumbo is doing things a bit differently than what we do, which is great. So, guys, if you've already answered one question, put the answers to the other two questions as well, and we can see if all three of your questions are correct, because apparently these questions are linked to each other. And so the answers also have to be linked. So whoever can get all three answers, something logical to the three answers of the three questions, then you are the one who gets to win the prize. Okay, then. But yeah, we are monitoring them. I'm sure they're coming in. We
All right.
because of time, I think we can move to our next presenter, and then we'll post the winners in the chat, just like we did for the first presentation. Thank you so much again, Kumbo, for making time to come and present to us. We do appreciate it, and yeah, we'll see you in the social media networks.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Make sure you've subscribed on my YouTube channel. I'm sure you're going to find some really amazing poetry there, and there's
Okay,
more to come because the year has just started.
indeed it has. Rev, do we have our last presenter here with us? His name is Frank Precious Moore. He's going to be talking to us about harnessing personal branding to excel during the COVID-19 pandemic. Frank, like I mentioned earlier, is a member of the YALI network. He has conducted he has undergone rather some courses or some trainings on the YALI network platform. If you're not aware, you don't have to be a YALI alumni or Mandela Washington Fellow alumni. As long as you can sign up to the YALI network, you can get emails that connect you to different opportunities. You can take some courses, you can organize some events. And just a moment, sorry, before we go into you, Frank, a quick highlight for some people who might be wanting to know how it is that they can become YALI alumni or YALI fellows, rather. So there are online application processes. And by virtue also of being a member of the YALI network, you automatically get those into your email as well. So another place that you can go and get this information also, here in Malawi, we are assisted by the U.S. Embassy in Lilongwe, the public affairs section, I think it is. Yes. So that's another place where you can actually also go and get some information to do with the two programs, YALI, which is the Young African Leaders Initiative, both the online cohorts and the residential cohorts, as well as the Mandela Washington Fellowship. That's where you can go and get this information. And just a quick thank you to them as well for giving us the grant to run this webinar series that we are currently doing during this time. We're trying to uplift the skills of youth in this COVID-19 pandemic. We have Frank with us. A testimony, I guess. Frank is going to be talking to us, like I said, about personal branding, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. So you can take it away, Frank. Frank, is your device muted? I cannot hear you. So we need to get Frank back. He was here. I promise you guys I saw him. But he seems to have a bit of a connection issue. So we're going to have to stand by while we get him back. I think in the meantime, what I can do is I can talk to you guys about the YALI Association in Malawi. So for those of you, some of you are on here and you are YALI or Mandela Washington Fellow alumni here in Malawi. And on a yearly basis, rather, we encourage you guys to subscribe to membership in the YALI Association. There is an annual membership fee of 5,000 kwacha. And by virtue of being part of the YALI Association, you get perks. You get to participate in the events that we hold. Certain things, for example, not just the prizes, but certain opportunities, you'll be the first in line for us to reach out to and say, listen, for example, what we're doing now, this whole webinar session, webinar series rather, the first people that we went to, for example, for graphics design, for the posters that we had, we went to YALI Association members. So they got first come, first serve, but then they got priority. So, these are just some of the different ways where we're just trying to also engage with our members and uplift them. I think we have Frank back now. Frank is ready to join. Okay, great. A quick welcome to you, Frank. Great, I can hear you now. Hi, Frank, how are you?
I'm excellent. How are you, Khadija?
I'm great. Are you ready for your presentation?
Very ready.
Great stuff. Okay. If we can pull up.
Thank you so very much. I greet you all. Great evening. My name is Frank Precious Molwe. I am the Executive Director for Vision for Change organization. Professionally, I am an urban and regional planner. In Malawi here, we say physical planner. That's physical planning. All right, I'm gonna be presenting on personal branding, techniques for personality and mindset change for youth. I do understand that personally, I understand that the young generation is the foundation of nations. If the foundation be weak, that means the substructure be weak as well. That's how I understand these things. So personal branding is to understand. If a youth, that means you've got to have that confidence to excel in a society, especially this era of COVID-19. And also, we've got to understand also that change is inevitable. Who knew that there would be the COVID-19 pandemic? No one knew, right? So that means as a youth, I want to be presenting on the definition of personal branding, benefits, rewards of personal branding, the price required, how to build your own brand, excelling during COVID-19 pandemic. All right. So the most important thing is that we've got to understand what personal branding is. Personal branding is the process of developing a mark that is created around your name or your career. You use this mark to express and communicate your skills and personality and values. you have to define what your values are. You have to understand the first person to work on is yourself. Once you are done with yourself, that's when you are ready to go to change your environment. You cannot change your environment if you haven't changed yourself. So you got to understand that changing yourself is important, and then you change your environment. Without changing your environment, without changing yourself, that means you can't change your environment. So that's very much important. So you've got to look at your attitude. What is your attitude? And then you have to look at your existing relationships. You know, a man is not an island. We're living in this planet Earth. We are many, 6+ billion people. What is your relationship about with people? So that's very, very much important. All right. And also, you've got to look at your professional role. What is your professional role? I understand here we are of different classes. Some have gone further with higher education. Some are still in the process. Some have gotten to that very, very higher level of education. But that does not matter. It doesn't matter at all. What matters is how you position yourself, how you present yourself, how you sell yourself, how you develop yourself. That influence is very, very much important. So the first thing is be yourself, develop yourself, train yourself, make sure you harness yourself for excellence. That's very, very much important. Also, your education on personal branding. I'm conceptualizing this for us to understand and also have a concept of what this is all about. Your education, skills, and training. I I quote the Bible. The Bible says that buy the truth and sell it not. The truth is very, very much important and expensive, right? So you got to invest your personality into building yourself for growth and also for excellence. That's very, very much important. And also your philanthropic efforts. There are things that will cultivate your branding. Philanthropic efforts are very, very much important. You are a person who has that heart of leadership and leadership of servantship. That's important. And also, that one will put you on record as well as on top of the mountain. Because if you do that, that means you are creating a mark, you are creating your own important environment. You know what? Once that important environment is created, that means a lot of people will be flocking to you once because they know that this person has a value. But once the value is not there, people cannot come. People will always follow the light. Who is to create the light? You are the one to create that light, and that is your responsibility. No one else has that responsibility, but you're the only one who has the responsibility. All right. Okay, so there are rewards of personal branding, and one of them is the first one is it is easier to build your network if you have a brand. How can your network extend? How can your network spread out? It's when you have that personal branding, a personal definition of yourself. The second one is your career will advance more effectively. You go as far as you can if you have a brand. No brand, that means you cannot go far. You see, so you also have more opportunities for new business, and also you create a reputation as a leader in your community. I understand. I am the co-founder of Vision for Change organization, and also the executive director. I understand how this organization had to flourish, it's just because of this. And it's you can easily influence your community through this, because people are not looking at, I usually tell people that people are not looking for your paper. People are looking for the solutions that you have. That's the most important thing you have to understand as a youth. You went to school, yes. You came out with a paper, yes. You got a distinction, that's good. But now, after school, what are you going to do? That's where personal branding is needed. So you have to create, to come up with solutions. Solutions is what the world is looking for. They're not looking for that paper. They are looking for what you can give them. And what do you give to them? You give yourself. You sell yourself unto them, because it is yourself that can change your environment. Once you are not changed, you can change your environment. That's very, very much difficult. And also you have more fun. Yes, you have more fun because of this personal branding. Why? Because it's so much easy. All right. So I wanna show you how you can showcase your brand as a youth, as an individual in this time of COVID-19. I understand that many people are depressed, but now if you can understand this, that means you can be able to stand out. So the first thing is to build influential relationships. In with my experience, I like telling people that it is important to stick to those people who have made it in life, because you'll be able to learn easily from them. That's very, very much important. Identify, and I can assure you that if you have mentors or coaches, that they can really help you they can really help you to have what we call a defined and a purposeful life. See, so that's how you can showcase, build influential relationship, and also get involved in cross-cutting, cross-functional projects. There are different projects. So the first thing as a youth that you can do is I like telling people, I'm much involved with the public, so I like telling people that if your goal is money, that means you can't make it. But if your goal is to serve the society, that in that way you will have your brand strengthened and cemented. If your goal is money, that means that brand of yours, or that initiative or project or whatsoever you're embarking on as a youth, cannot go far. The first thing is look out for a need. What can I do? After identifying that need, you've got to go for it, work on it, make sure you emit the best. And how can you emit the best? The first thing to do is serve the people, help the people. It shouldn't be money. Money will follow your value. Once you increase your value, money will come. That's how to move forward. The other thing is use volunteer links to strengthen or develop skills. I have ever done the volunteering work with different non-governmental organizations. That will help you to. That will help you. It will help you to be sold out to the public, and public will be. It will be very easy for the public to recognize you or know you. That's very important, and also take a leadership role in a relevant organization. And that's important. So I know you might have been talented or gifted in one way or the other. This is your time. It is your time for you to excel in your gifting. It is a time for you to excel in your talenting. All right. And how can you sell yourself? There's a way of leveraging your brand on social media, and also leveraging social media itself. So you can do that through what we call Twitter, You can do that on Facebook. You can do that on LinkedIn. There are also other social media platforms where you can use in order to sell yourself. That's very, very much important. All right. So that means you can load your videos on Twitter. You can load your videos on YouTube. You can load your videos on Instagram, and also different publishing platforms, right? As I've already put it, the microblogging sites, um, LinkedIn, Facebook, and also on Google. So you make sure that your brand, as I put it, it's very much concise and also appealing to people and also attractive. All in all, it has to be problem solving in nature, because if it is not problem solving in nature, it's going to give you a challenge, because people are not looking for what they can see that you have, but they're looking for a solution. All right. Now, having said that, how can you, the price that is required? I know we are young people from different places. It is much important. The price that is required is to stand out from the crowd. I like this. I like this. I like this. And I have liked it as I'm mentioning it to you. You stand out from the crowd. And how can you stand out from the crowd? There's something here. I quote my mentor, Reverend Dr. Chris Oyakhilome, who says, "Until you change a man's thinking, you cannot change his life, his state or estate." So the first thing is change your mind. After changing your mind, you influence the in your life. That's the thing. So stand out from the crowd. We don't compete here. Do your own stuff. The first thing is define your purpose. What is my purpose? What is my vision? Your vision, I told people that your vision shouldn't be in your head, shouldn't be in your heart. Your vision should be on paper. Write it down on paper. Because once you write it down on paper, it's going to be easier for you to maneuver with it. It's going to be easier for you to move forward. The only point that I can say here is move forward, don't look back. How can you build your own brand? This is very, very much important. So the first thing is to identify what is unique about you. Identify what is unique about you. Okay, you ask yourself, what is unique about me? If your name, for example, is James or Love, what is unique about me? What is it that is unique? You ask yourself that way. So that is what we call finding your purpose. You find your purpose. In the purpose that you have, that's where your uniqueness is. Because I understand that everyone is made uniquely, and everyone has something to do. No one can say, I don't have A, B, C, D, E. No. You've got to identify what is unique about you, and that will really help you to influence your environment around you. I understand that we got different people here from different classes. We got business people. We got people who are in different industries here, but it is the same thing. Identify your uniqueness. What is really unique about you? If you're a poet, go for that. If maybe you're a writer, you go for that. If maybe you're doing ABCD, you go for that. And the other thing is you create a process. create a process, right? Create a process. I understand that action is paramount to sell yourself or to change your environment. You can't just say, oh, I want to do ABCD. Okay, I want to start, for example, an organization. I want to start a company. You can't say, I want to start a company. It shouldn't be just like a song. You're singing it every day. You're singing it every day. No, you've got to create a process whereby you have a set of actions. What should I do? What should I start with? If I do this, what will be the next step? What will be the other step? Until you get to the final point. And after you get to the final point, you'll be able to say, oh, I have done it. I have done it. I have done it. Let me tell you something. Every star in life has paid a price. No star in life who just sat and then said, oh, it's going to happen. No, it can't happen. You've got to wake up. The other thing is turn it a solution to people's demand. I already indicated that the first thing, if you want your brand to be known, the first thing to do is find a need. What is the need? In this COVID-19 era, COVID pandemic, you find out a need. I understand that it might look difficult to adapt, it might look difficult to get in line, but still more, this is an opportunity. You're looking at that. What is lacking the community? What is lacking the community? Once you find out what the community is lacking, that is your way. After finding out a need, look into your gift. If that gift is suiting the need, once you understand that my need is suiting, my gift is suiting the need, my talent is suiting the need, go for it. Go for it. Go for it. And also, you've got to find ways on how to add value. Value is very, very much important. It is important. In fact, value is your money. Value is your excellence. Value will put you on top of the mountain. All right. Okay. I just bring you on how rather you can excel during COVID-19 pandemic period. So you've got to have this mentality. Remember, this is mindset change. I said it in the beginning that once you lose in your mind, that means you lose in every area of your life. The first place where you can win is your mind, because your mind is the information processing center. The information processing center. Any information that comes into your mind will influence your life. Will influence your life. Will turn your life to the good or to the bad. So you become your own CEO. I like telling people, especially the young people, that once you come out of school, the first thing is not to think about a job. The first thing is, how can I become an employer? How can I employ? That's the first question. Once you ask yourself that question, that means you can easily excel. Don't wait for the government to say the government will employ me. No, find something to do. You become your own CEO. Just imagine, let me just give an example in this era of COVID-19. Many companies closed and people were fired. You see, they're still waiting for the new normal. If you may ask, when will be the normalcy of the situation in the world? You never know. You never know. So you become your own CEO. Secondly, your career is your hands. Your career is your hands. That means you've got to work on it. Understand it. Don't just do it. I tell people that if you don't understand, you cannot excel. Your branding should go together with understanding. Understanding is very, very much important. So you understand your career. You are not defined by your title. You're not defined by a title. If you want to emerge a leader, a youth in a society, you've got to know that leadership is not a title. You've got to be a servant, serve. You are not confined by a job description. As I already put it, job description shouldn't confine you in that place, shouldn't define you. You've got to move out of the box. All right. Having a brand gives you a way to distinguish yourself. So that means you stand out, you emerge as a champion. Why? Because of your brand. So make sure your brand is unique. You build on yourself. You got to enhance your brand. Enhancing your brand is as well as enhancing yourself. So do you want to stand out? Enhance your brand. All right, just to conclude on my presentation, these are the words that I want to leave with you. You have to understand that education is a process. It's different from school. It is a process. Therefore, learning should be your priority for you to stand out in the society. This is very, very much important. And also, make sure you work on yourself. It is important. Do the things that will help you to move forward in future, to move forward in your life so that you have a better future. Remember, what you do today will determine your tomorrow. Your tomorrow is the reflection of your today. So this is the time to excel, regardless of the situations we are facing today. This brings me to my question segment. Thank you so much. All right. I have 3 questions here. The first question, name 2 words you can harness your mind for excellence. Name 2 words you can harness your mind for excellence. That's the first question. All right. The second question is, name 2 of the best projects you could ever work on as a person. Name 2 of the best projects you could ever work on as a person. I think you can start giving me the answers to the first question as I'm reading the third question. Your value is an asset. Name 2 words in which you can increase your value for productivity and relevance in a society. All right. I'm pretty sure that we got the questions. Pretty sure that we got the questions. All right. Thank you so much, Khadija.
Am I back on? Okay, thank you so much, Frank, for that presentation. We're still waiting for answers to come in to the quiz questions that you sent through. So far, we have one answer from Jimmy. He says his answer to question 3 is by volunteering and accepting to lead community projects, even when it means doing that for free, because you have a mindset of a change maker. That's his answer to question number 3. Your value is an asset. Name 2 ways to increase your value and productivity in society. We have another answer to question 1 from James Namalira. He says, when you said name 2 ways you can harness your mind for excellence, he says, number 1, to build influential relationships. Number 2, get involved in cross-functional projects. And he threw in an extra one there. Number 3, take on leadership. Let us know if these are accurate answers to your questions. Answer to question 1 so far, we have building an influential relationship, getting involved in cross-functional projects, taking on leadership. Are these acceptable answers to your questions, Frank?
No, I'm not convinced.
Yeah, I'm looking at the answers that you provided. Number 1 is not really tying to what you had provided. So if anybody else has an answer to question 1, please do come through and post it. How about the answers to question 3? Question 3, which is your value is an asset. How can one increase their value for productivity and relevance in society? So we have an answer from Jimmy, who says, by volunteering and accepting to lead community projects, even when it means doing that for free, because you have the mindset of a change maker. Is that
Yes, 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 yes.
okay? We have Jimmy, who's answered
Yes.
correctly question number 3. James is asking, can we repeat the questions? Okay, I'll repeat the questions for you. Question number 1 says, name 2 ways you can harness your mind for excellence. He mentioned several ways that you can do this. So we're just asking for 2 of those ways. Name 2 ways in which you can harness your mind for excellence. The second question is, name 2 of the best projects you could ever work on as a person. What are 2 of the best projects that you as a person could ever work on? He mentioned quite a few during the presentation. So any 2 answers that are correct would be acceptable. Question number 3 has already been answered and accepted, which was your value is an asset. How can one increase their value for productivity and relevance in a society? So the answer came in from Jimmy, which Frank says is an acceptable answer, by volunteering and accepting to lead community projects, even if it means doing that for free, because you have the mindset of a change maker. So while we wait for those answers to those questions, if anybody also just has any questions in general for the 3 presenters, post them in the chats, and we'll see if we can have them answer them for you before the webinar is over. We are also running out of time. We were supposed to finish at 8:30. So in case we don't get any more questions, any more answers to the questions, rather, we may have to close the segment. Just a quick thank you in the background. I don't know if a lot of you have been hearing me say Rev this, Rev that. We have Revelation Nyirongo, our Vice Secretary, but he's also our technical person. He's the person who's behind these webinars. He's the person who's running the show in the background. So a big thank you to Rev for making sure that we have these webinars running smoothly. I'd like to also thank the different board members who are also participating and monitoring the chats. They are monitoring the answers to the questions and telling us what the answers are so that we can announce them hopefully before we finish the space. So we have an answer to a question from Jimmy. Okay, Jimmy says, my question is on the difference between personal branding and personal popularity. What differentiates the two? Jimmy, if you can just let me know who you're directing that question to. I have a feeling that could either be to myself or to Frank, because we are the ones who spoke a bit about personal branding. But let us know while we still have Frank on, if he can elaborate, or would you like me to answer that question? Emmanuel from YouTube has posted an answer to question 1. He says, change your attitude and professional growth. And an answer to question 2, Emmanuel in YouTube says, philanthropic projects and volunteering. So answer to question 1, where he says, how do you harness your mind for excellence? By changing your attitude and professional growth. And this is indeed 2 of the ways. This is correct. So congratulations, Emmanuel, for answering correctly there. And question number 2, where he says the best project you could ever work on. 2 of the best projects you could work on as a person. Emmanuel's answers are philanthropic projects and volunteering. One of these answers is actually correct, but the second one is not. So I'll give you a chance to try again, Emmanuel. Jimmy has just elaborated. He's looking for an answer from the last speaker, Frank. Frank, there's a question for you where Jimmy is asking, what is the difference between personal branding and personal popularity? What differentiates the two?
Thank you so much, Khadija. Just to answer the question, as I put it in the first place, I defined personal branding defined as the process of developing a mark that is created around your name or your career. So the first thing to do is to work on yourself, improving yourself on your name. That is your career. Once that is improved, that means you're going to have what we call personal popularity. So personal popularity will come as a result of personal branding. So you have yourself being branded, and then what follows is the personal popularity, because you cannot be popular if you are not well branded. So that's the difference. One comes after the other. Thank you so much, Khadija. I'm pretty sure that I've answered the
question. I couldn't have answered it better myself. So thank you so much for that answer. I hope that's a satisfactory answer for you, Jimmy, where he has said personal branding comes first. After you've branded yourself well enough, you can become popular. So the personal popularity comes after the personal branding. I am still looking for an answer to question number 2. 2 best projects that you can ever work on as a person. So what I'll do is I'll ask that if after this live broadcast, if any of the participants have an answer to that question, quickly pop them in the comments section. And we'll see that if they're correct, then we'll announce you as one of the winners for that for that prize. Great. James says, thank you for the clarification on personal branding and popularity. All right. So at this point, I'd like to wrap up this webinar. Again, a huge thank you to all of you for participating. We look forward to, I know some of you guys are experts in some of the different fields that we're going for. The next webinar, if you follow us on both of our social media channels, that's on Twitter and on Facebook, you will see the call for expressions of interest for speakers. So we're encouraging you guys to come in and become presenters as well. The next webinar is going to be inspired by the public management and governance track. So if you have any knowledge to do with public management, governance, good governance practices, transparency, how people can engage in that sphere, I encourage you to participate. And I also encourage you to apply to be a speaker. All you need to apply is just to write your application letter, send it to Malawi at yaliassociation.org. Malawi at yaliassociation.org. I'll repeat that again, Malawi at yaliassociation.org. Send an application letter where you just say, this is what I want to speak on at this webinar, and we wait until you get shortlisted. So thank you so much for joining in. Remember to share with your friends, share in your networks. We've just spoken about networking, so I'm hoping to see some of you guys' professional networks a bit beefed up. I hope that this was a helpful webinar for you. And do remember that if you have any more questions, you can easily either email the association, inbox the association's Facebook page, or you can reach out to the presenters individually using the contact details that they posted at the end of their presentations. With that, I bid you all a good night, and I wish you well until the next webinar, which will